Okay, we are live. Welcome, everyone. For those tuning in, let us know where you are coming in from. I am located in Halifax, Canada. And Lisa is in Kansas.
Kansas, that's right. The
Kansas.
Midwest.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, I don't
Kansas
know
City,
why
well, Overland Park, Kansas. You got it.
I say it every time, and I always think I'm going to get it wrong.
That's right.
So today we obviously have an awesome webinar for you guys. Lisa actually wrote an article on this, so came with some prepared content that I think is going to be exciting for everyone. Angeline or Cassandra coming in from Maine. Welcome, Boston, New York. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Wilma, Angeline, Cassandra from Montreal. Nice. Ontario. Okay. So before I pull up the presentation here, Lisa, do you want to give a quick introduction? Tell people who you are for those who haven't already seen your webinars or your content.
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa. I am a wedding planner based out of the Midwest, out of Kansas City. I've been in the wedding industry for close to 18 years now. I've been a venue manager, so I've been in the event world as well as a wedding planner in kind of strictly the wedding side of things the last several years, but I've been around for a little while.
Awesome. And just to the person from Montreal, go Habs go. Just have to put that out there. We're going, we might make it.
I like the little plug.
Hopefully we make the playoffs. Okay, I'll share the slide here. Let us know if you could see everything. Lisa, you could see it on your end?
Yep, everything looks great.
Okay, so as usual, quick presentation. Lisa's going to talk to us about the art of personalizing event details. And then at the end, we'll go into a quick Q&A, and you can ask all the questions you have. Put them in a Q&A section so that it's organized for us, and we'll try to get through all of them. So why did we choose this topic? Lisa, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is just super relevant right now. Everyone is really trying to, sorry for the cat. Everyone is just really trying to, make their wedding unique, their event unique. And so this is one of the ways that we can really do that by adding in personalization and customization. So we really just wanted to kind of educate on the, some of the cool ways that we can do that, and then what we don't want to do, and then what we want to do and do really well.
Right. So just a quick overview. We're going to touch on some examples, how to avoid common mistakes, and then also the future of personalization. And then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. So move on to the next slide here. So a bride's vision.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Abby and Nick. Abby is probably the bride that comes to mind for me in recent years because of the amount of personalization and customization she put into her wedding. So basically what she had a vision where she really wanted to honor the people in her life. And she didn't want to just do, close family or things like that, but she wanted to find unique ways to really serve and honor all of the women, especially, but all of the people in her life. And one of the ways that she did that, and this is becoming a very popular trend that we've seen, is she did permanent jewelry. So during the getting ready time at the hotel, she brought in, food and beverage, but she also brought in this gal that did permanent jewelry, and everybody was included in that. So grandmas, aunts, mothers that were mothers of some of her best friends, even the vendors, the hair and makeup team got permanent jewelry. I still have 2 bracelets on from that wedding, and Wow. It was over a year ago. And so just, again, really bringing that whole community in to surround her as she was getting prepared for her wedding day. The something blue, she actually had little blue bracelets made for the really important women in her life. And I loved this because during the father of the bride's speech at the reception, he noted that and commented on it, and then had all of the women that had the blue bracelet on their wrist, like hold their arms up. And so this sea of women, like put their hands up, and you could just really see that there was so much love in this space. And then the hat box. So Abby's grandmother collected hats, and she had these antique hat boxes and these vintage hats that she brought out. And the bride did a little mini photo session with these hats, and then was able to present those photos a few hours later to her grandmother as a tribute to her. And I think what I just loved about the whole wedding is that the wedding itself wasn't about her. It was about the people surrounding her and her husband to be. And it was just so evident that the thoughtfulness there was just bringing the wedding to a different level. And that's what we remember about that wedding, are all the wonderful things that she did to celebrate.
It's like involving everyone in the wedding. It really must make the experience so much more meaningful for everyone there. That's awesome.
Absolutely. It was just a really cool. And I think that, I love to start with this because Abby and Nick just did it right. They really thought of all of the things that would make their day special, and yet still so unique, even though the wedding itself has the same components. It has the ceremony, it has the reception, that kind of thing. She made it truly something special for her and her husband.
I love that. Okay, so what are some common wedding planning mistakes? Of course, there's so many to go through, but we could touch on a few here.
Yeah, and this is really when we're talking about the personalization and the customization, but really, like, again, relying too heavy on tradition. So I think people get stuck in this idea of, well, I have to do it that way because my parents did it or my grandparents did it that way, or we have to have this, or we can't have that, or, that kind of thing. And I think really, truly in this day and age, you can really make the wedding whatever it is that you want it to be. But you have to do it in the right way, in a meaningful way. And I think that what you want to do is you want to make sure that you do make it unique to you. And don't rely so much on the things that people have done in the past. Don't necessarily look at what all of your friends have done, but look at what you can do that makes the wedding personal to you. If doing a first look, well, I don't want to use that as an example because I recommend first looks to everyone, but what I would say is if there's something that,
sorry, what's first looks really quick?
A first look would be like when the bride and groom see each other before the ceremony, rather than the first time seeing each other when you walk down the aisle. I have some people that really fall into that tradition. Well, we're not supposed to see each other before the wedding day. Well, I can give you a million reasons why you should, and I can give you several reasons why you shouldn't. And that's where being a planner is really the best part, because we get to educate our clients and kind of guide them through that. But also, I have a client that's getting ready to do a first look, but they're actually doing it in the ceremony space before the guests arrive. That is more unique. They're doing something that still is honoring in terms of doing it in the space of the ceremony, but they're not necessarily doing it in front of everyone else because they don't want to have that. They want to have a private moment. So that's what I mean about, like, don't just rely on the tradition of it, but make it unique to what the client is really wanting or asking for.
Yeah. So if someone is coming to you with a very traditional kind of like, oh, this is how I've seen it in the movies, this is how I want to go about it, do you kind of try to, like, how do you kind of get them out of that mindset?
For me, it's all about pros and cons. So let's talk about what that looks like.
Okay.
Using the first look as an example, if you're paying thousands of dollars for a photographer and you only get to use that photographer for 2 hours because you didn't do a first look, there's no value in that.
Right.
I also like to recommend the first look because it tends to relax the bride and groom. Once they've seen each other, then the tension goes out of the moment. And so you can then relax and enjoy the rest of your day, get those pictures taking place, in front of things. And then that enables you to have ceremony and reception kind of following each other rather than having this big gap where your guests are just standing around waiting for the bride and groom to show up.
So it's coming from a place of education and experience. When you speak with them, you're saying, I've done these so many times. Yes, we could do it your way, but these are the pros and cons of doing it this way. And here's how we could kind of brainstorm, your way out.
Right. And then here's how we can do it so that it still has meaning to you. Maybe it's the location that we're doing it in. Maybe it's a backdrop that's important to you. Maybe you have just your parents with you. And so that's really meaningful from a familial relationship standpoint. So there's ways to do it that still brings in that personal touch.
And really quick before I might move on from this, do you have like a brainstorm session when it kind of gets to that? They're clearly under personalizing the event. Do you have like, okay, well, here are some common things we could look at to try and personalize it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of thing is something that I go over when we do our wedding timeline.
Yeah.
So like right from when we're walking through the timeline, I'm asking those questions. Are you doing a first look? And then they're usually like, well, we want to, or we don't want to, and we don't really know what we should do. And then that's when I'm able to step in and give advice. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another common wedding planning mistake: over personalization.
Okay, so this is what an interesting one. So this happened years and years and years ago. It was so long ago, I can't tell you even what year it was. But what I can tell you, I don't remember the couple's name. I don't even necessarily remember the location. I remember it was in a hotel ballroom. But this particular client, I can still see in my brain what their monogram looked like because it was on everything. So when I say like, what it says here is it can turn corporate, it literally felt like a corporation. It felt like going to a corporate event where the name of the business was on every single thing. They had it on their, like in this picture, they had it on their dance floor. They had it on their menu cards, their programs, their cocktail napkins. They had it on of course, their invitations, but every single thing that had a surface had the monogram on it. And I think when you take it to that level, you've now taken the personalization out of it and you've made it feel more corporate. And I think that's why you have to be careful. A monogram is such a beautiful thing, but it doesn't need to be everywhere. It needs to be in touches, throughout the wedding, but it doesn't need to be on every single piece of paper.
So this would how you helped to organize this wedding?
That wedding was one that was more of like a day of. So like I came in at the end and they had already done all of those things.
Okay. So you would have tried to advise them not to do, or
correct.
select a few key things to put it on, but don't do all of it.
Exactly. We would have talked about it in the design process. So when we were talking about, the whole design overall, we would have talked about, like, for example, when we do our invitation meeting, we would say like, hey, let's put your monogram on the invitation itself, but we don't also need to have it on the envelope liner, the RSVP card. We just need to put it in a few places.
Right.
We can pull that into the wedding on the dance floor. I love a dance floor monogram moment like the one in this picture. It's so beautiful. We can pull that in there and then maybe put it on the program at the church or, at the ceremony location. And that's it. We don't need to have the monogram anywhere else.
Right.
And so again, it's just about educating our clients so that we're really talking about where it should go. I see that Maureen said, what do you do if the client insists on having, listen, again, at the end of the day, the wedding is theirs. So if they insist upon it, let them do it.
Yeah, it's not your wedding.
That's again where educating them on how corporate it can end up looking when you put it everywhere. Save it for your thank you card, save it for where you can put it in your home. But it doesn't need to be every single place at the wedding.
Yep. I could see though, as you're planning the wedding and you're looking at like, okay, well, I don't want to cheap out. Like if I could put it here, I'll put it all the places that it can apply because I don't want to cheap out on this wedding. So I could see how they could get to that point.
Yes.
But
there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
Yeah. And I think it's good to know this is a good piece of experience and advice. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving on to common wedding planning mistakes, the secret.
Yeah. And I think that it kind of goes back to that question there. What do you want your guests to remember most? Again, the wedding I just mentioned, I can't tell you who that client was. I can't tell you the details, but I can tell you what their monogram look like. And that's not, is that really what you know, when you're talking to your clients, is that really what you want your clients to remember, or you want your clients' guests to remember? So you want to think about that. Abby and Nick's wedding, she knew from the beginning that she wanted to honor her family. And that is something that really shone through the entire wedding. And that's what is going to be remembered by her guests. And so I think, like, again, just making sure that you're talking to your clients, and this is whether it's an event or a wedding or any kind of, party or anything like that. Start with clear priorities and intentions. What is it you want your guests to remember? What is it that you want them to feel? And these are questions that I ask even in consultations, because quite honestly, if a client comes in and they're like, all I want my guests to remember is the food, or all I want them to remember is just that they had the most amazing time because the dancing was amazing and the bar was amazing. Okay. Though that tells me something. Some people will come in and say, like, I just want everyone to remember how incredibly beautiful the wedding was. Okay. If that's all of those questions lead me to help my clients find different vendors to find the right fit for them,
Right.
and help them in figuring out those creative little moments.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think it makes sense. So yeah, finding that balance, and just coming from all the experience and all the learning that you're doing in these courses, this is why we're studying, so that you could bring that experience and that knowledge.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So there you go. Common mistakes. There we go. So I think the other thing too, and this goes back to educating our clients, is understanding that when our clients do want something that is maybe a little bit too personal, or it's personal in a way that's not obtainable, that it's our job to pull them back and find a creative solution. So my example for this is, and I may have told this story before. If I have in the past, I apologize. You get to hear it again. But I had a client a couple of years ago who was kind of obsessed with the show How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if anybody watch that show. I love that show.
Guys, come on.
It's so good. But in it, when Barney and Robin are getting married, Barney is insistent upon having a ring bear. Not a ring bearer, but a ring bear.
Okay.
And in the show, he actually gets a bear to be the ring bearer in the actual show, which is so darling and so cute. So I had a groom a couple years ago, and he was like, I want a bear.
Oh,
and I'm like,
from the show.
You want a bear? And he's like, I want a ring bear. And I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do. Okay. I learned a lot. I now know that it is illegal in the state of Missouri or Kansas to have a bear brought in unless you can get a handler. And the only way you can get a handler is if the bear is of the right age, and the bears were not going to be of the right age for the time frame that the wedding was in. And therefore, we could not make this happen for my groom. He was willing to pay any price to have a bear at the wedding, and it was not going to happen.
Wow. So you learned a little something, though.
I learned a lot. I had no idea. Never tried to get a wild animal for a wedding before. But I did all the research, talked to people in California, like all that kind of stuff, and couldn't do it. And I had to tell him, I'm sorry, I've done everything I can, but this is not something that is obtainable. But I wanted to honor his request. And so I went to actually my stationary person that we used for the wedding, and I explained the situation to her, and she went out and she got a little dish, and she had it engraved with a bear on it and their wedding date. And it was a dish that holds their rings, and it was their ring bear.
Wow.
That is personalization and customization. Again, is it exactly what he wanted? No, but that wasn't obtainable. So how could we do it in such a way that was fun? This was something that that our team did for the groom as a special memento. And when you think about that wedding, when I think about that wedding, that's one of the things that I remember. It's one of the things that they're going to remember
Right.
because they were able to open that on the wedding day and it was such a cute surprise and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So
they didn't know you guys actually did this like as a
oh, we
surprise
did it in
for them.
secret. We didn't tell them that we were doing. We actually did it. We did it for the entire wedding party. So there was like 20 people at the head table, and we had them made for each person at the head table.
That's lovely. Wow, Maureen
Yeah.
said, "Good idea." Did they like it?
Oh, they loved it. Yeah, they loved it. Like the pictures of, because I'm standing there when they open it, and the pictures of like all of us and like the like heads thrown back in laughter, and like they're some of my favorite pictures.
Wow.
Because of the memory of that and making his dream come true in a way he wasn't
expecting it.
He wasn't expecting. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
lovely.
Yeah.
So did he still get a ring bearer though to bring down the ring, or how did that work?
No, they're dogs. Their dogs were
Yeah, I was
there.
gonna say the dog should be the next option there.
Yeah, they had 3 dogs, I believe.
Okay.
Walk down the aisle. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yep.
All right. So other common mistakes. So sorry, going over the role of a wedding planner.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, I think that kind of just ties into that then is just we have to help our clients find the middle ground. So even with your question about the monogram everywhere, it's pulling them back where we need to pull them back and educating them where we need to educate them, and then pushing them forwards and also in unique ways, letting them know that having their dogs there is okay, but let's talk about what that looks like. That's also something that's very personal to people, is having their animals, their pets there. And that's great, but let's talk about the logistics of it. Let's talk about how we can step in and help out, but also I'm not a dog handler. So if you are going to have your dogs at the wedding, there has to be someone there that is responsible for the dogs.
Yeah.
If you're going to have personalization and customization, we have to talk logistically about how we're going to do it. The gal that had the hat boxes, we had to talk about when we were going to do this little mini bridal shoot throughout the day. And that's where having a wedding planner, really is so important, because we help make sure all of those things happen in the right way and in the timeline of the day. And then we can help move through that very efficiently.
Right. Yep. That makes sense. Okay, so the future of personalized weddings.
Yeah. So I think, again, a lot of the things that we've already kind of talked about, things that are interactive. So, the hat boxes, the jewelry,
Love that.
permanent jewelry, bringing in those interactive type things. I've had people that have actually done, well, I haven't had anyone do this personally, but I know it's happened where they're actually bringing in an actual tattoo person.
Yes. Yeah.
This is, these interactive type things are becoming more and more popular.
People ever bring like games to play? Like
so if it's outdoor, yes, we do a lot of yard games, things like that. I haven't done a lot of games inside, more just kind of like cocktail hour kind of things like that. I think people like more of and this kind of goes along with curated cuisine there, but people like to do food interactive stations. Cotton candy has been a popular one. There's like so many unique flavors of cotton candy nowadays. Oh gosh, popcorn stations, just things that get the groups involved. We've done a lot of live painters.
Yeah, love
which is
that.
such a cool thing. I love this idea. And there's to be able to see them actually like crafting their work, letting the bride and groom like actually paint a piece of the painting. Again, this is very personal. It's very customizable. And so you're seeing a lot of those kinds of things. The cultural blending, even like, Indian weddings where you've got like the henna, like even people bringing that into the wedding and having that be an experience for the guests. And so again, I think just thinking about what your clients want to remember from their day, and then really expanding on that and doing that creative research to find ways that you can make it happen for them. But I think the biggest thing to remember is that this trend isn't going away. We want to see more and more personalization so that weddings don't stay cookie cutter. We want them to be unique to the client, and not just because their colors are different or their flowers are different, but because they put time and energy into really thinking through what they want their guests to experience.
Yeah, I see Maureen talking about their 50th birthday party. So they brought in games from the 70s and 80s. Makes sense for your 50th.
I love that. I think that's such a creative way to be nostalgic, especially for an anniversary or a birthday party, but anniversary or birthday, either one. I think that that nostalgia is really a great way to bring in some of that personalization and customization.
I'm pretty young, Maureen, but if you want to let us know in the chat what those games are, I'd love to look those up. Okay.
I'm probably closer to that than you are, Malcolm.
I'm a 90s kid, so this will be new for me here.
I was born in the late 70s, so.
Okay, so all right, yeah, so makes sense. I think we touched on the future in kind of your summary of the other slides, but yeah, I think this makes sense. Curated cuisine. So what are some examples for curated cuisine? Like, how do you personalize that?
So again, I think it's like bringing in those food options. I also think, like for example, I have a wedding coming up they're doing like a backyard ceremony, and then a cocktail reception on their pool deck, which is very kind of like American, so to speak. The groom is Chinese. And so after that, they are going to a restaurant and doing an 8-course Chinese traditional wedding meal.
Okay.
And so again, it's just really kind of thinking through the blending of culture, but bringing in those food dishes. It doesn't just have to be a plated chicken dinner or a buffet with beef and chicken. Like, it can be something that is more special and more, it doesn't even have to be cultural necessarily. It could be, the groom's favorite food, or, pizza. Oh my gosh, we have this amazing pizza food truck that is like a high-end luxury pizza food truck here in town. It's like a 1920s vintage truck that they turned into a pizza oven, and their pizzas are like gourmet quality pizzas. Phenomenal. If you love pizza and you still want a luxury wedding, what an awesome thing to be able to do. And so again, it's just like thinking about what the client loves and then bringing that to life in a unique way.
Amazing. I love that. Maureen elaborated with some games that I actually did.
Operation.
I know these, and I have both of these. I know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, Maureen. Okay, so we can move on.
That's impressive. I don't know how to do that.
Okay, so just in conclusion here.
Yeah, I mean, like it says here, a wedding should be more than just a beautiful day. It should really be unique to who the clients are. And I know a lot of this speaks, to the weddings, but also to events in general. Like you said, with your 50th birthday party, I think that when you put in those personal moments, you have just a whole new experience happening, and it is very authentic to the client. It feels very special. Those are the things that people are going to remember. And so we just want to really draw that out of our clients. I'm not going to lie. There's some clients where they just don't know any different. They're just following the same steps that everyone else does. And it does seem very, I hate to use that term cookie cutter, but it is just, it's just the same as what a lot of people do. Sure. There was 5 years in there where I felt like if one more person came to me and said, I want to be unique and do pink and blush or blush and gold. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I have to do another blush and gold wedding, I'm going to lose my mind. But then someone might come along and they might say, well, I'm kind of over the blush and gold, but I want to do something totally different. And I want to have a bright purple wedding.
Right.
And even though that's not necessarily, it's not just about color, just moving outside of the trend sometimes is a really amazing way to go, because like, it's just different.
Yeah.
And so you remember that rather than, what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that wraps it up. We're going to hop into the Q&A. Before we do that, if you have a second, as usual, if you could fill this out, it takes 1 minute. It's really helpful for students or people who are looking to get into event planning to see your experience, see what it's like to take one of these courses. So just take 2 seconds to kind of tell us about your experience, and you could really help impact other people's career journeys. Okay, I will hop into the Q&A here. Question from Wilma, who I think said never played Operation. How would you detour advise a couple where the bride wants to please everyone and the groom wants to please the bride?
I mean, again, I think it just goes back to really just to education and, and really, kind of talk about what the pros and cons are. Why does something work and why does something not? Because at the end of the day, we want to make our clients happy and we want them to make all of their guests happy. But the truth of the matter is you can't, and you have to understand what your priorities are. And so sometimes it's about rerouting them or detouring them back to what their priorities are. And let's talk about those. You can't have 10 priorities in a wedding, but you can have 2 or 3 priorities, and let's focus on those. And then if we can also do the other, 6 or 7 things that they want to happen, great. But let's start with what those priorities are and get them to understand that first. And then you can kind of help guide your clients in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let us know if that answers your question, Wilma. Or if you have like something specific or like a concern about.
Yeah, a specific example too. Yeah, that'd be great.
And work through it. Maureen, how do you explain to a prospective client who is surprised of what the amount of cost it will be for an event? So I'm sure this is super common to work through. But.
Yeah, this happens a lot. So one of the things that we do within the company that I work for is we actually do a budget meeting pretty quickly with our clients. And we really talk about every little thing. So just as an example, in just attire, we're not just talking about the dress and the tux. We're talking about the dress. We're talking about alterations. We're talking about if she wants it cleaned and steamed. We're talking about her shoes, her jewelry, her veil. We're also talking about, is she changing her dress? Is she going to switch out to another dress? Is she going to switch out her shoes? Sorry, I'm getting my thumbs up on there. Is he going to change shoes? Are you paying for bridesmaids dresses, or is that something the bridesmaids are paying for on their own? So we break it down into all of these different categories, and we let them know kind of like a high-low cost of what that can look like. And then we just let them see what the total is at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times there's a lot of sticker shock right there, because they'll be like, oh my gosh, when you add it up, it's so expensive. Right. Now let's go back and talk about what our priorities are.
How we could cut from there.
That's right. How can we pull this back?
Right.
Of course, the number one way to cut back on any event or wedding is to cut back on the guest list. That's the number one way to do it. It's also the number one thing that most clients won't do.
Yeah, so this is so tricky. I think it feels like it's the most complicated part of the whole process is the
it can be. It definitely can be, because I think that, and again, some of it is just base education. If a client comes to me and says, I have 250 people and I want to do the wedding for $30,000, let's talk about that. You're not going to be able to serve dinner. What do you mean I can't serve dinner?
Right.
Well, just do simple math. If you are charging, $20, which in this country right now is not even a lot for an individual restaurant meal, right? $20 per person times 250 people, do the math. Yeah. And that doesn't include anything but just dinner. That doesn't include your venue, your dress, your floral, your photography, or anything like that. So sometimes it's just about educating and then, making them understand just simple. And sometimes I use the McDonald's example. You can't go eat at McDonald's without paying like $8 per meal.
Yeah.
So you can't expect to treat your wedding guests to a meal that's also $8 a meal. It's not realistic. Yeah. Now, if you decide to have a cocktail reception and not do a dinner, now we can talk about that for a little bit. But if the food is your main priority, $30,000 isn't going to be enough.
Really quick before I hop into Wilma's next question, do you, is it common for the organizer to kind of like, especially for destination weddings, but to upfront charge guests, or no, or to let them know like, hey, like this is like, here's the service. We expect you to to bring a certain amount of money, or is that very
So
common?
it's really, so destination's a little bit more unique. I think, a lot of people don't go to destination weddings. It's why the guest counts are super low on destination, because there is so much more upfront cost. I would say that as a planner, if I was helping plan a destination wedding, I would say like you need to have an idea of what that cost is going to look like per couple or per person, so that they can know and start planning now if they're going to attend that.
Yeah.
So I think destination's a little bit different. I think you have to be very upfront about that. When it comes to like, even like, I wish this was something that more couples did, but like, even like asking your bridesmaids to be a part of the wedding, like you need to think about what that looks like. Are you asking them to buy a $150 dress and also buy their own shoes? And do they have to pay for their own hair and makeup? And that's another $300. I mean, like, they're also going to throw you showers and go on bachelorette parties and things like that. It is not uncommon for a bridesmaid to spend over $500 to be a bridesmaid in a wedding. That's something you have to think about, or have your clients think about. Groomsmen, it's not quite as bad, but bridesmaids definitely have.
Such a good point. My friends had brought that up, and they had like 3 bridesmaid like occasions for the summer, and it was just like it was an upfront cost of about $500 per event.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think so. I think it is important to think about those kinds of things.
Right.
So like, I have couples, I have high-end couples that they pay for almost everything. They pay for the bridesmaid's dress and the hair and makeup and all that kind of stuff. So it's less of an impact on the wedding party. But I also have clients that's not in their budget. And so I think just being upfront about what that's going to look like is a much better way to go. What's never any fun. It's never any fun anytime you're surprised by something like, oh, I didn't know that I was going to have to buy plane tickets for this bachelorette party that's taking place across the country. And like, you know what I mean? Like, I think no one ever wants to be faced with something like that, which is why you've got to have those conversations early on.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Yep. Question from Wilma. You mentioned why you should do a first look, but I don't think I caught a reason not to. Why wouldn't you do a first look?
So I think, again, that goes back to tradition. So for many, many, many years, bride and grooms did not see each other prior to the wedding because it was considered bad luck. That there's like, and it's in all
I've
of
heard
your
of that,
courses.
yeah.
I know it is. It goes back to the days of like arranged marriages where you like, there's literally a veil over the face. You didn't get to see that person. Like it was, prearranged, all that kind of thing.
Right.
Which is also why when we talk about that, it's like, well, that's not really the world that we generally live in. I know there are still arranged marriages in other places in the world, but here in the United States, there, we don't have a lot of that happening. And so the tradition is based on something that is a little archaic. And so I think people like to say like, well, you have to do it this way because otherwise it's bad luck. Well, first of all, bad luck, good luck. A marriage takes work. It doesn't matter if you have good luck on your wedding day or bad luck on your wedding day. You got to work at it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that like, for me, it becomes a logistical thing and a value of money kind of thing. So a lot of Catholic weddings, because Catholic weddings usually take place at like 12, 1, 2, something like that. I don't really have a problem with doing a first look because there's so much time. There's that Catholic gap that takes place between when the ceremony happens and when the reception happens, that you still have plenty of time to take pictures in the middle and it doesn't disrupt your day. I don't mind a first look then. But when you're not getting married until 5:30 at night, and then you don't want to do a first look, well, you're just making your guests stand around for nothing, or you're not getting your value out of your photographer.
Right.
So again, it's really just about educating them as to why they should or shouldn't based on their timeline, their religion, or, cultural preferences, and then just figuring out what works best.
Yep. A quick therapy session, quick philosophical question about luck and good luck, bad luck, and then Get on with it.
I mean, it's
Okay.
like it rained on my wedding day. It's supposed to be good luck for it to rain on your wedding day. I've been married for almost 18 years. So, I mean, I guess maybe good luck. I don't know. Or maybe we've just worked really hard at our marriage. I don't know.
Okay, lovely message here from Greg. I'll just share it really quick. I've been trying to get on these training and information sessions for a while. I want to say, Malcolm and Lisa, this session has been truly fantastic. Love it. So many golden nuggets here. Keep it up. Thank you, Greg. That means a lot. Obviously, you could watch the replay as well if you guys didn't make for the whole event, and you'll get the replay session sent to you by email, and you'll see it in the virtual community. But yeah, thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
It looks like that's the last question, so we can wrap it up here. I'm going to share with you guys a link to the virtual community. If you haven't joined it, please do so. You have all your peers in there. You could ask questions. You'll see when events are coming up. And yeah, it's just a good place to be for graduates and students to learn and grow with each other. Lisa, as usual, you did an amazing job. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Great questions. And this was lovely. And happy Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
See ya.